Good morning, Canada. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another episode of Question Period. Today is June 5th, 2024, and it's Wednesday, my dudes. Wow, we've got an awesome lineup for today's QP. Pierre Poilievre is, of course, scheduled to appear. Justin Trudeau is off to France. Bye-bye. Au revoir. Au revoir. Not sure why he's not attending QP. It is caucus leader day, and it's very rare that the caucus leaders are not in attendance on Wednesdays, as that is the mother of all days throughout the week, especially with the summer break on the horizon. I think we're like 3 or 4 weeks away from that. Kind of unusual as to why Trudeau's not there. But nonetheless, here we are. We're going to make do with what we have. Before we get into it, though, I want to encourage everyone to smash the like button and subscribe if you haven't yet already. I know you hear me say it very frequently all the time, but it does help grow the channel. It does help push these live streams out further, which would be super duper appreciated. And yeah, we're going to get into it in a moment here. They've got a bunch of kids in the house singing "O Canada," part of a choir. I don't really know. We're not going to look at it right now because it's kind of weird, but they're going to be starting statements by members in a few minutes. So take this time now to get yourself situated, get yourself a coffee, get yourself a beverage, whatever it is you want. I got myself a coffee right here. I've actually got a Sith Lord. This is Darth Maul's lightsaber. I got a nice little, that's just, you know, welcome to the dark side. Yeah, so it's going to be a good episode, folks. It's going to be a good episode. Bank of Canada made a new announcement this morning that interest rates are going down. Yeah. People are celebrating $84 of savings on a $500,000 mortgage. Yay! It's actually really bad for our economy, for interest rates to go down, because our dollar is so devalued that we have to keep it up. We have to keep the cost of interest rates up a little bit longer. But I don't know. That's just coming from a bunch of professionals. So who am I to regurgitate what the professionals have to say? Let me know down below in the comments what you guys have to say about that. Oh, someone's saying D-Day celebration? Well, there you go. I suppose that's why he's in France. I've been to Le Havre in France. I've been to Juno Beach. It's pretty wild. They still have all the barriers and stuff like that out on the beaches and the bunkers. It's pretty insane. In fact, one of the most memorable things about Juno Beach was the bunkers were very, very, very smart with the engineering of that. They had a hole that looked like a breathing hole in the side of the bunkers so that, you know, when the beach would get stormed, people would throw grenades in that hole, but it would just do a loop-de-loop and come right back out to their feet. So kind of crazy with how they engineered those bunkers. Nonetheless, let's get into this video here, folks. Here we go.
On the flight path and jet fuel in order to inhibit the industry's impact on climate change. Their outstanding efforts devoted towards promoting sustainable airline practices bring pride to Markham. I congratulate these young minds for their innovation as they serve as an inspiration to all of Canada in the fight against climate change. It brings me great joy to recognize the exceptional achievement as they're stepping into the final stage of this competition. Congratulations, St. Augustine Catholic School. You bring Markham a pride and promising future. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Niagara West.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. This week is National Roofing Week, so I'd like to thank the folks at the Canadian Roofing Contractors Association for their hard work and dedication to their craft. We always want to make sure that roofers and other tradespeople are acknowledged and celebrated for their contributions to our country. Roofers don't just replace and repair roofs. Their work protects our homes, our workplaces, our families with cutting-edge technology, which many of us could learn more about. This Roofing Week, we want to raise awareness about the importance of this proudly Red Seal trade that is also an essential part of the larger building trades sector. The roofing industry provides well-paying jobs for thousands of Canadian families and contributes billions to our economy. From harsh winters to hot summers, roofers make sure that we're protected in all types of weather conditions. Roofers don't just seek applause or medals. Their reward lies in the satisfaction of a job well done. I want to thank the folks in the
roofies. Yeah, it almost sounded like roofies.
Building trade sector for the work they do and assure them that Conservatives will always have their back.
The Honourable Member for Labrador.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today I rise to honor the return of the unknown Newfoundland soldier who bravely fought in the First World War from 1914 to 1918. This hero is finally home and will be laid to rest on July 1st at the base of the National War Memorial in St. John's, Newfoundland and Labrador. This is a solemn occasion for all of us as Newfoundlanders and Labradorians and Canadians to come together to pay tribute to their sacrifice and to remember the courage of all who served. During the recent trip to France, it was an honor to stand where they once stood, to read their stories and to pray at their graves, many with markers known only to God. We remember Labrador's son, John Shywock, who fought there in 1915, and many others from our great province who fought with bravery and valor. This repatriation is a testament to the struggle and sacrifice endured by these brave individuals and a significant role that Newfoundland played in the Great War. I want to recognize the veterans and advocates who made it possible, including Berkeley Lawrence, Frank Sullivan, and Gerald Budden, and all others for their dedicated work. The unknown soldier is home in Newfoundland, representing all of those from our province who fought in the Great War. We will remember them. We will honor them.
Damn. She got a strong-looking handshake.
The Honourable Member for Repentigny. It gives me great pleasure to highlight the honour received by my colleague, the member for Beauport, Côte-de-Beaupré, Île-d'Orléans, Charlevoix. The Great Lakes Fishery Commission presented her this year with a Water Warrior Award as a parliamentarian who, through her work and advocacy, has contributed to the health of the Great Lakes and St. Lawrence River. This title suits her to a T. After all, this artist MP was born in the St. Lawrence River on Île aux Coudres.
Someone said that's a dude.
Was a captain on the very waters, and she titled her first album Sortir de l'eau, Out of the Water. The fact that a commission from the federal government of the United States and Canada decided to honor a member of the Bloc Québécois says a lot about her commitment and the quality of her advocacy at parliamentary committees. In any case, this will be great when Quebec is on that commission as
no Fergus today? He might be there, yeah.
Warrior.
Sometimes someone else fills in for statements by members.
The Honourable Member
We'll have to see, though.
Saint-Michel.
Italian Canadians' positive contributions to our country are apparent from coast to coast to coast, and more so in my riding of Saint Leonard Saint-Michel. Que ce soit dans nos petites...
Whether in our small businesses or in multinationals, Italian talent and know-how shine throughout our community and country. As the daughter of Italian-Canadian parents, it is with great pride that I mark Italian Heritage Month. Let's be sure to recognize and celebrate the rich heritage that our parents and grandparents passed on to us through their hard work and love for this country that has become theirs, and that so many Canadians have come to know and appreciate.
From innovation to business, art, music, and cuisine, our family traditions endure through us and continue to contribute each day to Canada's great cultural mosaic. Buon mese del patrimonio italiano e buona e lunga vita a tutti gli italiani. Grazie.
The Honourable Member for Regina Leuven.
Today is my great pleasure to rise and congratulate the graduating class of 2024. Congratulations on reaching this very important milestone in your lives. From the beginning of kindergarten to the end of grade 12, you've grown into adults that are ready to take on the many opportunities and challenges that you'll face going forward. The skills you've learned and developed throughout your education will set you up to excel in whatever career path you choose to pursue. Your teachers, coaches, classmates, and friends have all added to the strong individuals you've become. School is just not about academics, but the all-important life lessons and experiences you have gained while navigating your first 18 years. So, to the graduating classes of 2024 in Regina Leuven schools, from Sheldon to Luther, Riffle, Winston Knoll, and Martin, congratulations. We look forward to seeing how you, as future leaders, will contribute to our great province and our country.
Here, here. The honourable member for Surrey Newton.
Mr. Speaker, this past Sunday at the Gurdwara Sahib Brookside Canadian Ramgarhia Society in Surrey Newton, I attended the 301st birthday celebration of Maharaja Jassa Singh Ramgarhia. In the 18th century, under the banner of the Dal Khalsa, which was Confederacy of military units, Maharaja Jassa Singh Ramgarhia was a distinguished military strategist who left a lasting mark on the Sikh history.
Diversity.
His leadership
one
was
frame.
characterized by strategic brilliance and a strong commitment to defending Sikh interests. I want to thank Gurdwara Sahib Brookside Canadian Ramgarhia Society President Balbir Singh Chana, Public Relations and past President Surinder Singh Jabbal and all their members for their unwavering dedication to building a better, more inclusive community for all. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Translate, please.
The honourable member for Davenport.
I wish I could.
Mr. Speaker, it's been 71 years since a group of Portuguese immigrants arrived on a boat named Saturnia, docking at Pier 21 in Halifax. Today, Portuguese Canadians are almost 500,000 strong, representing one of the largest Portuguese diasporas in the world. Living in vibrant communities across Canada, they're builders, musicians, athletes, business leaders, chefs, teachers, and politicians, among many other professions. Through their perseverance and hard work, they have enriched Canadian society and have transformed Canada into not only a better country, but into one that profoundly reflects our unique diversity and multiculturalism. As a Member of Parliament for Davenport, the riding with the largest number of Portuguese Canadians, I am proud to rise in the House today to celebrate the beginning of Portuguese Heritage Month in Canada. Whether it's by listening to fado, drinking vinho verde, or eating a bifana or pastiche de nata, I invite all Canadians to join me in celebrating Portuguese culture this month.
No.
Feliz mês de Portugal. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I know it's boring, folks. We're almost done statements by members. But what you can do while you are bored is hit that like button. It's free to do.
Budget watchdog told the finance.
Let's see if we can get like 500 likes before QP starts.
Analysis that confirms his conclusion that Canadians pay more than they get back in phony carbon rebate checks. Yet the Prime Minister has put a gag order on the Parliamentary Budget Officer, muzzling him from speaking about this secret report and covering up the truth. Now we know the Prime Minister is intentionally hiding the truth about the carbon tax from Canadians. Instead of being open by default, as he promised in 2015, instead of being transparent with Canadians, he has intentionally hidden facts, stonewalled opposition, and gaslit Canadians about the truth of their policies, that the carbon tax makes everything more expensive for everyone and does nothing to help the environment. Will he take the muzzle off the independent parliamentary budget officer so Canadians know the truth once and for all? The Prime Minister is not worth the cost of this cover-up. It's time for a common-sense Conservative government that will axe the tax and be honest with Canadians.
Cheers to that. Right on time, folks. Right on time.
The honourable member for Brampton Centre.
Mr. Speaker, when the Conservative leader was housing minister, he only built 6 affordable units. Our government is focused on building affordable homes. Less than 2 years ago...
Imagine trying to roast somebody and having to read your notes and you still mess it up.
Funding. 53 million, 3 projects, 110 affordable homes for Peel. 30 million to convert a hotel into homes for Brampton. 2 weeks ago, I participated in the grand opening of Birch Place, a housing project with 67 affordable rental units. Our government is getting shovels in the ground. The Conservative leader has no plan. He doesn't care about building homes for Canadians. We are focused on working with local governments to build more homes for Canadians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for South Shore St. Margaret's.
The Auditor General's report on the Liberal-Green slush fund is shocking. Liberal cronies overseeing the slush fund voted 186 times to send taxpayer money to companies they owned. That represents over 40% of the projects approved. Even worse, these Liberal swindlers gave themselves $76 million and hid their conflict from the meetings. The rot started from the top when in 2019 the Liberals knowingly appointed a person to head up the board who the Green Slush Fund was already doing business with. Wow. They were warned, but appointed their conflicted cronies anyway. Tonight, Liberals have a chance to come clean. The Liberal minister and PMO staffers responsible for handpicking these slush fund swindlers will testify before committees to explain why they knowingly appointed Liberals with conflicts and did nothing when they funneled themselves taxpayer money. As Canadians struggle to pay the bills, Liberal cronies get rich on taxpayer money. Only common sense Conservatives will stop the Liberal corruption and bring back common sense to Ottawa.
The honourable member for Sturgeon River Parkland.
Mr. Speaker, the Ethics Commissioner confirmed he would reopen his investigation into the business dealings of the Liberal
Welcome back, Dane Lloyd.
The minister is the owner of a number company that holds a 50% share in Global Health Imports, where he served as a partner before his election in 2021. This company is involved in numerous criminal offences, including fraud. Global News reported text messages from the minister's former business partner, Stephen Anderson, that show a mysterious Randy directing business operations in September of 2022. A Minister of Employment with the same name was prohibited from taking any role with the company. Wow. Now, the minister has claimed that he has no knowledge of the identity of this other Randy. However, a whistleblower has revealed that the Randy in question was a partner, a public official, and that they were, in fact, the Minister of Employment. Wow. The minister's business associates could easily put this scandal to rest by telling us the identity of this mysterious other Randy. However, they refuse to reveal his true identity. Why won't the minister tell us who this other Randy is, what's his last name, and is he in this room at this very moment?
What the fuck? Oh my God, they're pointing to him! They're pointing to him!
Order.
Wow!
Don't forget, statements by members, very important times. I want to make sure I get the
fuck up, House Speaker.
This week we are celebrating my grandfather's 100th birthday. A man who is imbued with audacity, unwavering...
Oh my God.
Lyndon Singh was born in 1924 at a time when equality for women was non-existent, but this did not deter him. Not only did he educate his sons, he was one of the first people in his city to put all 4 of his daughters through university. He faced immense pressure from friends, family, and neighbors to dissuade him. He did not waver, and because of his determination, other families started doing the same. His fight for the rights of women has been continuous all throughout his life. I am where I am because of him today. He set the example for us on how to live with dignity, self-respect, always have a sense of humor, and stay in high spirits no matter the circumstances. He is my heart and soul. Even though earlier this year he lost his vision and cannot see me, he is listening to me. Give him a beautiful, beautiful honor that I can. And I love you to the moon and back, Papa Ji. Thank you so much.
How sweet. Now arrest the Liberals.
The honourable member for Churchill, Keewatin-Nukaski.
This government is playing with fire. Last week it was reported the Chief of Defence Staff, Wayne Eyre, complained that the use of military personnel to assist in wildfire operations is wickedly wasteful. Wickedly wasteful at a time of a climate emergency? As a Manitoban, I know just how much of a difference the Canadian military has made when all other resources have been exhausted in fighting major floods and wildfires. Now, when we're sending more troops to Latvia, our key military leader is essentially saying if it comes to forest fires and floods in Canada, good luck. This is unacceptable, as is the response of the Prime Minister. When I asked him about this in question period, he responded with a series of indecipherable platitudes. To the Prime Minister, take a stand. Make it clear that your government will reject any idea that helping in terms of forest fires and floods is wasteful. Finally, we need to reject the way in which we're increasingly sleepwalking into major policy decisions without considering their consequences. At a time when nothing less than the future of our planet is at stake, Canada is increasingly being part of the problem, not the solution, when it comes to international conflicts and catastrophic climate change. Canadians deserve better.
The Honourable Member for Montarville. Mr. Speaker, the war continues in Ukraine. The horror continues for the Ukrainian people, to whom we reiterate all our solidarity. It is against this backdrop that this week Canada welcomes Alexandra Matvichuk, human rights activist and 2022 Nobel Peace Prize laureate. The Prime Minister met with her on Monday, and the Bloc Québécois had the honour of doing the same this morning. Her message is clear: more weapons and more justice for Ukrainians. She is asking Canada to increase its military aid. She is also asking Canada to share her thirst for justice for the 72,000 victims of war crimes. She demands that the Russian barbarians who committed and ordered these atrocities be brought to justice immediately before a special tribunal. She said, "We need Canada's weight to convince other countries that the time has come." We assure Ms. Matvichuk that she and Ukraine can count on the weight and support of the Bloc Québécois. In the name of peace and justice, Slava Ukraini.
Slava Ukraini, huh?
The Honourable Member for Thornhill.
A new day means a new scandal for this tired Liberal government. This time it involves Liberal Employment Minister who needs to answer if he violated federal law by continuing business deals even after joining Cabinet. In a conversation at his firm about contracts and cash, one of the firm's partners told someone asking for the money that a man named Randy would be available in 15 minutes for a partner's call. The Employment Minister was quick to say that the text conversation wasn't referencing him, it was someone else, the other Randy. It's a small company. He owned 50% of it. He used to be a partner. So let's see if we can find out who the other Randy is in a game of Guess Who. Is he tall? Does he wear glasses?
Is he bald?
Does he have brown hair or blonde hair or no hair?
Yeah.
Does he have federal cabinet minister? Does he come from a city that rhymes?
Oh my God!
Mr. Speaker, I think the other Randy probably has the same last name and the same job as the employment minister. So will the other Randy please stand up?
Oh my God! Randy's sweating now.
The Honourable Member for Notre Dame.
Holy shit!
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Conservatives are relentless.
I is honored to welcome to Ottawa the International Civil Aviation Organization leadership. Salvatore Shakitano, President of the ICAO Council, and Juan Carlos Salazar, Secretary General of ICAO. Canada is dedicated to supporting ICAO in pursuit of a safe, secure, sustainable, inclusive, and accessible...
Randy Bobandy.
And we value ICAO's positive impact on international civil aviation.
ICAO is
you played Where's Waldo.
system and plays an essential role in supporting the multilateral.
Wow, that's good. We're off to a spicy start, folks. And Trudeau's not even there.
ICAO,
Imagine that.
Only UN specialized agency headquartered in Canada. And this year marks its 80th anniversary.
Today, Canada reaffirms its commitment to being a world-class host to ICAO and pledges to continue to work with ICAO and its member states to develop and implement the highest standards for global aviation. Merci.
Oral questions.
Oral questions. Questions. Honorable Leader of the Opposition. Drop some W's because Greg Fergus is missing.
Le Comité pour la Sécurité.
Mr. Speaker, the National Security and Intelligence Committee of Parliamentarians has indicated that members of this House purposely helped hostile foreign actors. Canadians have a right to know who and what the information was.
Committee indicates there are members of this House that have knowingly worked for foreign hostile governments. Canadians have a right to know who and what is the information. Who are they?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition knows very well that no government, including the government of which he was a member, is going to discuss particularities of intelligence information publicly, so he knows better than that. But the good news, Mr. Speaker, is if he wanted to get the appropriate security clearance and be able to see the confidential report of the National Security and Intelligence Committee of Parliamentarians, he would be much more informed than he is now, and we would invite him to do so he wouldn't stand up and cast aspersions on the floor of the House of Commons without any information whatsoever.
Look at the seals, eh? Like, they don't even have coordinated applause. It's embarrassing.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, we don't need secrets and confidentiality. That's what got us into this problem in the first place.
Yeah.
What we need are the facts so that Canadians can judge. Just like in the case of the Green Slush Fund, the Auditor General revealed $123 million of spending that broke the rules, $59 million of projects that never should have been awarded money at all, $76 million in money gone to companies connected to the Liberal appointed members, including $217,000 to the chair of the fund that was giving out the money. Will the government support our common sense plan to hand over all this information to the RCMP for a police investigation?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, that today the Conservatives don't want to talk about the economy. But we know that the economy is the issue that most concerns Canadians.
Right.
And that is why I am so glad to share some great news. Today,
the Bank of Canada, there she goes. AAA credit rating. Oh my God! I knew she was gonna fucking talk about this.
After 9 years of this Prime Minister, with the support of the Bloc Québécois, Montreal is in a state of chaos, crime, drugs, and disorder. Children need police escorts to go to preschool. So will this government accept the Conservative demand to refuse the exemption to the criminal code in order to prevent supervised injection sites from opening next to preschools and schools? The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker.
Who cares about that?
Once again, it's not surprising.
We lowered interest rates.
The Conservative leader does not want to discuss the economy. But we know that the economy is the issue that Canadians care about the most.
No way.
And that is why I'm so happy to share a piece of good news, which is that today the Bank of Canada...
Kids need police escort, and she talks about interest rates? What is going on? You could get shot any day, but interest rates went down 25 basis points.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
And interest rates remain 20 times higher they were when that member promised that they would go down. Remember when she said the big risk was deflation and low rates? Well, she was exactly wrong then, and she's even more wrong now. Mr. Speaker, 6 years ago, I said there was a carbon tax cover-up. The government wouldn't reveal the true cost of its carbon tax. Then they published information claiming everyone was better off. Now we find out that there is a secret report showing that with the economic costs,
oh, there you go, man.
The vast majority of Canadians are paying more. Will the government end the gag order, stop the carbon tax cover-up, and release the report?
And she's going to talk about how great interest rates are now. Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, it is just really sad and shameful that the Conservatives continue to talk down the Canadian economy and that they are unable to celebrate our great country.
There you go.
The reality is, Mr. Speaker, this has been a great week for Canada.
Yes. Oh, my God. Oh, my God.
The Stanley Cup Finals.
There is no amount of alcohol that can erase her screeching voice from my head.
Canada's on a roll, Mr. Speaker. Our plan is working.
Good job, Freeland. You helped the Oilers get to the Stanley Cup Finals, I'm sure.
Speaker, the government has put the parliamentary budget officer under a gag order. In fact, I have a copy of the gag order right here, and it says, this is a letter from the environment minister to the parliamentary budget officer. The department is providing information that is unpublished. As such, I request you to ensure that this information is used for your office's internal purposes only and is not published or further.
Show the screen. Show the screen. Show it to the camera. Show it to the camera.
True cost of the carbon tax. Why won't they end the gag order, stop the carbon tax cover-up, and release this report today?
He should have showed it to the camera so people can screenshot it and zoom in.
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the person who seems to be laboring under a gag order is the Conservative leader.
Oh.
And that gag order seems to prevent...
She just likes saying the word gag.
...positive about our amazing country. The fact is, today is a day of really good news. The Bank of Canada has lowered interest rates. Canada is the first G7 country to lower rates. Our government's economically responsible plan has created the conditions that made that possible.
We all knew it was coming. We all knew that she would just be yappity yappity yap.
L'honorable député de la Prairie.
The honourable member for La Prairie.
Stay tuned, everybody. Don't leave because it's Quebec.
The honourable member.
They're gonna double back.
Mr. Speaker, foreign interference is spreading its tendrils right into this House. The National Security and Intelligence Committee of Parliamentarians has confirmed that MPs have been working under foreign influence right at the heart of our democracy. The committee has to keep things secret, but political parties don't, and they certainly need to take action. Please, spare us the list of what the government has already done against interference because we know it hasn't worked. What will the government do now? The Honourable Minister of Public Safety. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank my colleague for La Prairie for his question and his involvement not only in the OG Commission, but I'd also like to thank his party and our other partners for the important work that's being done today. For example, to support Bill C-70 to strengthen our national security institutions and our collective capacity to recognize and fight foreign interference. So I'd like to thank him for that. The honourable member for La Prairie. Mr. Speaker, this is important. The parties need to rise above the fray because among us, there may be members who, knowingly or not, are working for other countries. That is extremely serious. I'm calling upon the Prime Minister and calling on all of the leaders of the opposition parties. If someone among us is under foreign influence rather than representing their fellow citizens, they don't belong here and should leave. What will the government do to make sure that happens? The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I find it a little surprising that even the Bloc Québécois doesn't want to talk about the economy. Because I know that for Quebecers as well, the economy is the main issue. And today we have a piece of good news, which is that the Bank of Canada has decided to lower the key interest rate. That's good for Quebec. It's good for all of Canada.
The honourable member for Burnaby South.
The allegation that there are MPs knowingly working for foreign governments to undermine our democracy is deeply serious. That's why I requested a classified briefing to get more information. But the Prime Minister has known about this since March and has done nothing. And the Conservative leader doesn't even want to know what's going on, has refused this information.
What?
Why are these two leaders turning away, looking away from foreign interference when it serves them?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, I thank our colleague, the Leader of the NDP, for his important work and the work of his House Leader in setting up, for example, the commission led by Justice Hogg. I'm very pleased to hear, Mr. Speaker, that he's interested, having received obviously the appropriate security clearance, to get all of the confidential information that's behind the important work of the National Security and Intelligence Committee of Parliamentarians. Our government created that committee. We appreciate its work. We value its recommendations. We have always acted to put in place strengthened measures when we receive thoughtful analysis, like we did from the National Security and Intelligence Committee of Parliamentarians, and we'll continue to do that important work.
The Honourable Member for Burnaby South.
Known since March and has done nothing. Les allégations que
These allegations that MPs may have received assistance from a foreign government, that is very troubling. And the Prime Minister has known about this since March 22nd, but has done nothing. And as for the Conservative leader, he doesn't even want to hear about it. Why are these two leaders content with closing their eyes to the reality? Perhaps it's because they think foreign interference favors their chances to win. The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I thought that the NDP shared our concerns about the cost of living. And that's why it's very surprising to me that the NDP doesn't want to talk about the Canadian economy.
Oh my goodness. That's all she cares about.
Is that today we have good news. The Bank of Canada has decided to lower the key interest rate. And that's thanks to our accountable economic plan.
The Honourable Member for Wellington Halton Hills.
Mr. Speaker, the NCCOP report makes clear the Prime Minister was advised back in 2018 of the national security threats against Parliament from hostile foreign states. He was advised that measures in place at the time were not sufficient. He was advised to take further action. 3 times, the senior civil service asked for his approval for action to protect Parliament in December 2019, in December 2020, and again in February 2022. 3 times the Prime Minister withheld that approval. Why?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, I think our honourable colleague knows very well that our government was the first government to put in place a series of measures to strengthen our institutions and our democracy from the threat of foreign interference. He knows very well that that threat was identified publicly in 2013 in a CSIS report when the leader of the opposition was responsible for democratic institutions, and they did absolutely nothing, Mr. Speaker. So I find it somewhat ironic that my friend would stand in his place and say that our government, the first government to act in this important area and continue to strengthen these measures, hasn't done enough.
The Honourable Member for Wellington Halton Hills.
Mr. Speaker, the report reveals that parliamentarians, including members of this House, knowingly and wittingly assisted a hostile foreign state in Parliament and in our elections to the detriment of the people of Canada. This is shocking. And Mr. Speaker, I can't believe the following needs to be said. Parliamentarians' duty is not to a foreign state, but to the people of Canada. Simple question. Will the Prime Minister release the names of these parliamentarians?
It's the right thing to do.
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety and Democratic Institutions.
Monsieur le Président, mon collègue, c'est...
Mr. Speaker, we all know that no responsible government would reveal names under these types of confidential circumstances.
Abso-freaking-lutely they would.
A government that cares about Canada's security and our institutions would do such a thing. I am very pleased that there are parliamentarians in this House who have the right security clearance to get all the information that underlies the NCCOP report. I would invite my colleagues to read that report properly. The Honourable Member for Mégantic-L'Érable. Mr. Speaker, this government has tried to deny and diminish the scope of foreign interference in Canada. But the NCCOP report unmasks this Prime Minister's guilt and indifference. The report revealed that parliamentarians, including MPs in this House, knowingly helped hostile foreign countries to interfere in this parliament and elections. That all goes against the interests of Canada and Canadians. It's shocking and unacceptable. This Prime Minister has the power and the duty, especially, to do something about that. Will he reveal the names of these MPs?
There's a poll down in the live chat.
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
For those that want to vote.
Once again, Mr. Speaker, it's concerning to see how irresponsible our colleagues across the way are. They are asking for something that is simply not done. I would ask my colleague to speak to his own leader and ask him to accept the government's invitation to receive the appropriate security clearance in order to be able to see all of the highly classified information that our colleagues on the National Security Committee have seen. That would perhaps be a more honest way to make a point.
Oh, let's go, Andrew Scheer.
The Liberal defense of the carbon tax is in complete shambles. First, they only want Canadians to focus on the direct costs of the carbon tax and ignore all the secondary effects like smaller paychecks and higher prices, as if Canadians have a choice of which carbon tax costs they have to pay. But now we learned that there's a secret report that does show the true cost. The Parliamentary Budget Officer says that it proves that he's right, that the vast majority of Canadians are worse off paying the tax than any rebate they receive. The Liberals claim that it proves they're right. There's an easy way to settle this. Why won't the government just release the report so Canadians can decide?
Yeah.
The Honourable House Leader for the Government.
Mr. Speaker, math is really not the long suit of the party over there. The PBO has specifically said and repeated time after time, you would think they'd understand that 8 out of 10 Canadians better off under the price on than
it's been debunked. Nope.
The fact is, though, Mr. Speaker, they talk of gag orders. We haven't seen the member for Peace River Westlock in a long, long time. And what about the former chair of the Status of Women Committee? We haven't seen her either. They are not anytime going to give
It will get leaked. I have full confidence it'll get leaked.
Visuals, we can't say whether someone's here or not, so just to be careful on that.
Uh-oh.
Regina Cabell.
Apparently answering questions doesn't seem to be this minister's long suit. Their responses here are completely ridiculous. They claim that this report exonerates their position, but they won't release it. This is a little bit like someone who's accused of a crime walking into court saying they have an amazing alibi that proves that they're innocent, but they just can't show it to anybody. Here's the thing, Mr. Speaker, if you won't show your evidence to the jury, you're probably guilty. Why not do the easy thing, release the report, remove the gag order so Canadians can decide?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Environment and Climate Change.
Mr. Speaker. I'd like to start by wishing a happy World Environment Day to all Canadians, especially to the failed former leader of the Conservative Party, the member from Regina Capel, and the new leader of the Conservative Party from Carleton, who have voted against the environment over 400 times in this House of Commons, Mr. Speaker. It's clear where they stand on climate change, and it's clear where they stand on environmental protections. But Conservatives continue to mislead Canadians. Our government will continue to support the good work of the PBO, Mr. Speaker. I'm sorry that Conservative math just isn't adding up these days.
Why don't you jump into another person's DMs and tell them to F off?
Mr. Speaker, Canadians know that the Liberal carbon tax increases the cost of everything while failing to bring down emissions. The Parliamentary Budget Officer confirmed that Canadians are paying more than they're getting back from this so-called rebate. The Liberals are clearly afraid that Canadians will know the truth, and that is that the carbon tax has made life unaffordable.
That's right.
When will this government stop the cover-up, release the report, and confirm what we all know, that Canadians are suffering because of this carbon tax?
Because of Trudeau. The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister, Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I'm glad the Conservatives are finally asking a couple of questions that are at least in the neighborhood of the economy. The next step for them is to recognize how significant today is. Today is the day that Canada, first among the G7, lowered interest rates. It's the first time rates have gone down since COVID hit. This is a tremendously important day for Canada, and it is our responsible economic plan that has made it possible.
The Honourable Member for Lac-Saint-Jean. Well, Mr. Speaker, on Monday, the Prime Minister will finally meet François Legault.
Thanks, Nat. Well, for the super chat. Appreciate it.
It's high time. 4 months.
It's in euros.
Doing anything about Quebec's influx of new arrivals. Monday needs to be a turning point. The federal government
it's like $1 bajillion Canadian.
Has been asking for temporary immigration to be reduced and that French requirements be brought into federal programs. It's also asking for asylum claims to be shared fairly, and it's asking for a reimbursement of $1 billion. So, on Monday, will the Prime Minister finally sign the check on Monday? The Honourable Minister of Immigration. Mr. Speaker, I know that the Bloc Québécois wants to speed up the processing of asylum claims, but what's really hypocritical...
This guy, he always looks like he's scared, like a toddler that's been caught red-handed with the hand in the cookie jar or something.
Speed up asylum claims process.
Just always scared. His eyebrows are always up. His eyes are always wide open.
The Premier of Quebec thinks the Bloc Québécois is useless. I don't share that opinion, but I'm starting to lose my convictions in that regard. Well, Mr. Speaker, if the federal government thinks that $1 billion is too much, it could have done something about asylum claims before. It could also have reduced that bill by doing its job, especially on work permits. According to Quebec, asylum claims represent 20% of people on welfare, not because they don't want to work, but because they're not allowed to do so. Minister Fréchette has confirmed that, on average, they have to wait for work permits for 10 to 11 months. That's what Minister Fréchette said. When will Ottawa stop keeping these people in a life of poverty? The Honourable Minister of Immigration. Mr. Speaker, yesterday the entire opposition opposed our reforms on asylum, which would have sped things up. I find it ridiculous. They should admit what they're doing. We've talked about dark and light blue. And as for Monday's meeting, they'll have to wait until Monday.
Mill Woods. Mr. Speaker, it is clear that the Liberals are trying to hide what Canadians already know, that it's a carbon tax is a costly scheme that is making everything more expensive. The Parliamentary Budget Officer has already proven that the vast majority of Canadians are worse off economically because of this failed scheme. What we didn't know is that the government actually went out and did their own economic analysis of the carbon tax. But they're refusing to release it. Why the cover-up?
Here. Why? The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, the member opposite should be careful what he asks for, but I will reiterate for the benefit of this House that 8 out of 10 Canadians are better off today than they were before because
not true.
The price on pollution. And
nope.
As a bonus on this World Environment Day, Mr. Speaker, the environment and climate change, we make our contributions to achieving our targets, and we can do Canada's part, as I know all Canadians want to do, in combating climate change.
Bravo.
The Honourable Member for
more taxes will fix the weather.
All we're asking for is that report to be released so Canadians can see the results, because it's Canadians who are the ones that are paying for this expensive, failed Liberal scheme. So when the government goes through the trouble of putting together a report and doing the analysis, but keeps that report a secret and doesn't even allow the Parliamentary Budget Officer to talk about it, you have to wonder, how bad is it, Mr. Speaker? When will they end the cover-up and release that report?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Environment and Climate Change.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And unfortunately for the Conservatives, that's just not what the PBO has said. The Parliamentary Budget Officer issued a report about a month and a half ago saying that he accidentally overestimated the economic impact of the carbon price on Canadians, Mr. Speaker. I would like to re-emphasize for Canadians that 8 out of 10 Canadians get more money back through the Canada carbon rebate than they pay in the price on pollution, Mr. Speaker. And as a reminder, the next payment of the Canada carbon rebate will go out on July 15th in the summer. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Dauphin, Swan River, Neepawa.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberals are hiding the truth from Canadians. The Environment Minister is refusing to release a secret government report that proves the carbon tax is costing Canadians more than they get back. In fact, the Liberals have placed a gag order on their own budget watchdog, blocking him from speaking about this damning report. Canadians already know the carbon tax is a complete scam. So when will this Liberal minister release his secret report and end his carbon tax cover-up?
The Honourable Minister of Rural Economic Development.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And, you know, I'd like to remind the member opposite that thankfully we all passed the Fez last week, and that means in his riding in Manitoba, a family of 4 is going to receive $1,440 with the rural top-up. In my riding in Newfoundland and Labrador, it's $1,430. In Alberta, it's $2,160. Because no matter how you do the math, Mr. Speaker, 8 out of 10 families are better off with the carbon rebate, especially families in rural. They've got that top-up.
The honourable member for Beauce. Mr. Speaker, after 9 years of this Liberal government, life is so expensive, and Quebecers are paying the price. Once again this week, the Bloc Liberal coalition voted against suspending the federal gas tax, which would have given Canadians a break, and the Bloc Québécois wants to radically increase taxes. The Parliamentary Budget Officer confirmed this week at the Finance Committee that the government has a secret report which will prove that the carbon tax has fiscal repercussions. When will the minister publish this report which proves that the Conservatives and Canadians are right? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is ridiculous. 8 out of 10 families get more back from the carbon rebate than they pay, where it applies. It's that simple. This carbon pricing revenue is redistributed among families. Wealthy families pay more than they receive, but middle class and lower income families receive more than they pay.
No, that's just not true.
8 out of 10 families
receive
8 out of 10.
more
money in their pockets. Those are middle class and lower income families.
In 2011, the Conservatives changed the food mail program that went from helping people in the north to subsidizing rich corporations in the south. Everyone knows it is not working, but the Liberals refuse to reform it. The Northwest Company and the CEO makes millions in profits and bonuses, but people in the north cannot afford to eat. When will the Liberals finally reform the Conservatives' broken Nutrition North program so it helps people to afford healthy food?
The Honourable Minister of Northern Affairs.
I thank the Honourable Member for her very important question. We know that the affordability of food, nutrition is so important in the North. We are committed 100% that 100% of the retail subsidy will go to Northerners. We are currently doing an internal review of Nutrition North. Once that's done, we will do an external audit. We are committed that 100% of the retail benefit will go to Northerners.
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Member for Nanaimo Ladysmith.
Mr. Speaker, families in Nanaimo Ladysmith are struggling to keep up with rising food prices. Yet the Liberals have done nothing to lower the costs, and the Conservatives would rather protect CEO profits. The NDP is giving them a chance today to help Canadians. They can either support our motion to cap the cost of essential foods or keep protecting CEO profits while families go hungry. Which will they choose?
The Honourable Minister of Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, I agree with my colleague that food prices is difficult for many families across this country, but they got a bit of good news today, Mr. Speaker. 4.75 is the numbers that Canadians will remember. But if the member really wants to help, she should ask all the members, especially on the opposition, to support us in pushing Walmart and Costco to adopt the Grocery Code of Conduct, Mr. Speaker. On this side of the House, we have been pushing for more competition because we know that more competition will bring stabilizing prices, will bring more choice for consumers, and will make sure that, over time, Mr. Speaker, Canadians will win on that. We are committed at every step of the way to fight for Canadians, and I know that the Conservative will vote.
Not a single person really believes that.
Canadians.
The Honourable Member for Kitchener South Hespeler.
Mr. Speaker, as we mark the beginning of Pride season, it is a time to celebrate the 2SLGBTQ+ community and reflect on their accomplishments. However, we know that the rise of hate directed toward this community has made many feel unsafe. Could the Minister of Women and Gender Equality and Youth update the House on our government's efforts to create a safer and more inclusive Canada?
The Honourable Minister of Women and Gender Equality.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the member for her advocacy. As we raised the Pride flag a couple of days ago, I announced $1.5 million to offset security costs for Pride festivals right across the country. It isn't the kind of announcement I ever want to make, but the queer community feels directly what security agencies tell us. Hate is on the rise. The community asked for help, and we responded. At a time when we're seeing less support for queer communities, our government will never waver. On this side of the House, we support Canadians, no matter who they are, for being their authentic selves. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for St. Albert, Edmonton.
Mr. Speaker, who's Randy? The Minister of Employment has a 50% stake in a PPE company embroiled in allegations of fraud. Text messages from the COO reveal that a partner named Randy was involved in one of those shady business deals. The minister assures us it's not him, yet somehow he's unable to identify who the other Randy is amongst a handful of employees. So again, who's Randy?
Here. The Honourable...
Look at that. In unison, they all stand up.
Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, of course, Canada has among the toughest, most stringent ethics and conflict of interest provisions in the world for public office holders. The minister appeared yesterday before committee for 1 hour and answered all of those questions.
They deflected for an hour.
The Honourable Member for St. Albert, Edmonton.
Mr. Speaker, there is no trace of this other Randy. Global News can't find him. The COO claims there is this other Randy, but conveniently has forgotten his last name. And the minister can't identify him among a handful of employees. This is a farce. Everyone knows who Randy is. Will the minister just stand up and admit it's him?
Here. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Oh, it's getting chaotic in there.
Order. The Honourable Government House Leader.
I'll remind it in French. Canada has one of the strictest ethical and conflict of interest codes in the world for public office holders, and this minister answered for an hour to all of these questions, Mr. Speaker.
The member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands and Rideau Lakes.
The NDP Liberal minister from Edmonton wants Canadians to think that he's not breaking the law, but he was cashing checks from a company that was lobbying his government, and a company that he owns 50% of was winning government contracts using his name. As a minister, he's not allowed to do either. Now, in a Global News report this week, text messages reveal someone named Randy at his company was part of a $500,000 fraud. The minister said it wasn't him, it was the other Randy. Of course it was. So, who is the other Randy, and what's his last name?
Yeah. Where's Randy?
I just have to make be careful in using the proper names of individuals in the chamber. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Speaker, I, of course, just answered that question.
Is the House Speaker admitting that that's Randy there?
The Honourable Member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands, Rideau Lakes.
Well, Speaker, we have the same suspicion as the Speaker does that, in fact, there is perhaps some concern about using the member's name. But, well, the Government House Leader wants to hide his member. We're just going to run through a scenario here. What are the chances that the other Randy is just the minister from Edmonton in a rubber nose and a stick-on mustache? I'd say about 100%. Broke the Conflict of Interest Act, broke the Lobbying Act, broke the Criminal Code. We want to know, will the real Randy please
stand up? Holy shit! How are they literally breaking the Criminal Code of Canada, and there's no repercussions.
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Monsieur le Président, bien sûr que...
Mr. Speaker.
The Conservatives are chanting Randy.
That's enough. House Leader.
Oh, man.
Indeed, Mr. Speaker, I thank you for that.
This is getting good.
The dignity of this place, where we presume all members are honorable. The member in question spent an hour at committee yesterday answering questions from that member and other members. And of course, I know that the member will continue to ask those questions. I will give the same answer. We have a very strict code of conflict of interest and ethics in this country, and all ministers are expected to comply with that.
The Honourable Member for Terrebonne.
This is getting so good.
We've suspected for months. You tabled 3 reports with the same damning conclusion. The Liberals have completely lost control of the government machine. Contracts without calls for tender and without justification, payments made to companies before they had even delivered anything, funding for ineligible projects. There is absolutely no oversight of spending. And that brings us back to the question we've been asking for months. Whilst the Liberals are trying to govern Quebec and the provinces for them, who is governing the federal government? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to thank my colleague for giving me the opportunity to thank the Auditor General once again for her important work on this file and on a number of other files. We heard the Auditor General yesterday putting forward similar conclusions to the ones published by the government a year ago. Given all this information, we have been acting for the past years to put an end to tendering for Mackenzie. The Honourable Member for Beauport-Limoilou. The McKinsey case reveals a decadent culture at the federal level. The Auditor General confirms that one of the $200 million in contracts awarded to McKinsey, that of the $200 million, 71% were awarded without a call for tenders, 58% were awarded without oversight. For 24% of the contracts audited, the federal government did not even know whether the work had been done. This is scandalous. The report makes only one recommendation, that is that all federal organizations identify cases of conflict of interest, whether real or apparent. Will the government finally do it for real?
Let's go, Randy.
Minister for Public Services and Procurement. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Auditor General's recommendations are very similar and sometimes identical to those that were already published over the past few months. Important work has been done over the past year on the issues that my colleague has raised. What's important to note as well is that not only will we continue to do the work, but it's important to do so to ensure the integrity of all procurement process. The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. Mr. Speaker, another report from the Auditor General and another Liberal scandal. This time it has to do with the Green Fund. We learn that 196 times the administrators gave themselves subsidies. $123 million were inappropriately paid out. About half should never have been paid out in the first place. There's only one way to make the situation clear. Does the Minister agree with our proposal to have having an RCMP investigation? The Honourable Minister for Innovation. We have no lessons to learn from the Conservatives, that's for sure. We were very clear, Mr. Speaker. The second there were allegations made, we started our own investigations through Raymond Chabot, through McCarthy Thetro. And you know, Mr. Speaker, this is an independent arm's-length organisation that was created by Parliament 20 years ago. But following allegations, we suspended funding. The head of the board of directors resigned. The head resigned. And now we have a new governance model, and the activities will be transferred. Mr. Speaker, we'll have the highest levels of governance, and it's exactly what we'll do. The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. Mr. Speaker, in this very report, a senior official says that there is an absolute incompetence at the Liberal government, and that it is at the level of the sponsorship scandal. On the 11th of November, the whistleblower said, and I quote, the Minister said a number of times that he had not been informed of the results put forward by on the 27th of August. But no, he lied to the Ethics Committee. Who should we believe, the whistleblower or the minister? The Honourable Minister for Innovation. The Conservatives know full well we have nothing to learn from them. We started the investigation, Mr. Speaker, through an independent...
Oh, they investigated themselves. Got it.
Canadians at home are reasonable.
Got it. That makes sense.
That a responsible government starts investigations and acts on the conclusions. And that is exactly what we did. And that what we're proposing to Canadians is a new governance model.
Guys, it's okay. They investigated themselves.
Continue to work to help our...
They figured it out.
Continue to fight against climate change and to continue to make our country progress.
Member for Brentford Brant. Mr. Speaker, the AG's report proves again this Prime Minister is not worth the cost or corruption. The report reveals massive corruption at the Green Slush Fund, highlighting the misappropriation of $76 million through 90 cases of conflict of interest. Their directors sat at a table, awarded millions of dollars to their friends and to their own business interests. All the while, more and more Canadians are hungry and homeless. The question is simple. What plan does the minister have to get that money back?
The Honourable Minister of Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, the Conservative are so allergic to good news that they go to old news, Mr. Speaker. The big news today is 4.75. That's the number that all Canadians will remember. That is the number because we have good economic news. But, Mr. Speaker, I'm happy to answer the same question again. What is a responsible government? It's about lynching and inquiry. That's what we did, Mr. Speaker. And on the basis of the findings, Mr. Speaker, we suspended the funding to the organization. The CEO and the chair resigned, Mr. Speaker. And now we're proposing a new governance model, one with the National Research Council, because we want to restore funding to small and medium-sized businesses in this country, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Pontiac. Mr. Speaker, water is essential for Indigenous communities. It's life. It's sacred. Before 2015, the Conservative government refused to listen to First Nations. At the time, there were 105 long-term drinking water advisories. Can the Minister for Indigenous Services update us on the government's efforts to protect water and invest in infrastructure for our Indigenous communities? The Honourable Minister. Thank you to the member for Pontiac for her work on access to drinking water. In 2015, the Liberal government completely changed the paternalistic approach of Stephen Harper. We now listen to and work closely with Indigenous leaders. Our investment has allowed us to eliminate 144 drinking water advisories. We've also tabled a clean water bill for First Nations so that we'll never go back to where we were before. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan.
The Auditor General's report proves that this Prime Minister is not worth the cost and the corruption. Most of the government's $200 million in contracts with their friends at McKinsey broke the rules. Liberals are tight with McKinsey. The former ambassador to China and head of the Prime Minister's Economic Advisory Panel came from McKinsey. The policy director to the former Minister of Public Services and Procurement was also McKinsey. This government serves McKinsey consultants and scandalizes Canadians. Why did Liberals repeatedly break the rules to benefit their friends at McKinsey?
The Honourable Minister
to get rich, man.
Service and Procurement.
Thank you, Minister.
That's the wrong bald guy. We want Randy.
Also,
where's Randy?
To this question. One question we haven't got an answer to is why are the Conservatives not sharing today's great economic news?
That's all they have to say.
Rates in the past 4 years, and the first in G7 countries, and that is not only because we have been responsible budgetarily, but because Canada in 2025, inaudible for the interpreter, investments in dental care, investments in healthcare and childcare, especially throughout Canada, and investments in home building.
For Sherwood Park, for Saskatchewan.
Mr. Speaker, it's no surprise that Liberal minister will do everything to avoid talking about even mentioning McKinsey in the response. Minister, this question is about McKinsey. This company supercharged the opioid crisis, advised totalitarian regimes, held a corporate retreat down the road from a concentration camp. This company has a vile track record, and yet Liberals have constantly turned to this company, supercharging McKinsey's profits, and Liberals have turned to McKinsey to make critical decisions about this country's future. Now that they've finally been caught by the Auditor General, will this NDP Liberal government finally ban this vile company from government contracts? Yes or no?
The Honourable Minister of Public Service and Procurement.
It may indeed be that our colleague was distracted when I spoke about the matter many times during question period. I'm happy to repeat the same answer to the same question, which is the fact that we thank the Auditor General for her report. Her report contains recommendations and views that have been understood and heard in many other reports in the previous months. We have acted on those recommendations for more than a year now. There's nothing more to add except that today is an important day for Canadians and their economy. They don't seem to care. Now, the first time in 4 years that there is a fall in the interest rate and the first decrease across 47 countries.
The Honourable Member for Lévis-Lotbinière. Mr. Speaker, after 9 years of this government, it's not worth the cost nor the corruption. The Auditor General told us yesterday that the government awarded 70% of its contracts directly to McKinsey without a call for tenders with the help of the Bloc Québécois. This is blatantly unethical and irresponsible. It's thinly veiled corruption. It's a real scandal, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, why is the Prime Minister handing out so many contracts to McKinsey without a call for tenders? Why? The Honourable Minister for Public Services and Procurement. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Very clearly, people aren't listening across the way because I've responded to this question many times. A problem in listening because a couple of days ago, I heard the leader of the Conservatives tell Quebecers that the Canada dental care system simply didn't exist when there are 2,000 seniors in Lévis-Lotbinière who have already registered to this apparently inexistent program. And there's a high percentage of dental experts that have already signed up to the programs.
Mr. Speaker, the opportunities for Indigenous tourism are unlimited. In spectacular Northwest Territories, people have come to experience the unparalleled Northern Lights and Northern hospitality. Last November, we launched the first stream of Indigenous Tourism Fund, which currently supports over 150 projects. At least 50% of the tourism growth program will be invested in Indigenous tourism attractions. Can the Minister of Tourism tell us how our government is supporting reconciliation through infrastructure investments and Indigenous tourism? Thank you.
The Honourable Minister of Tourism.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank my colleague for his question. Indigenous tourism is a pillar of our government's tourist growth strategy, and Canada has the potential to become a leader in the world when it comes to authentic Indigenous tourism. That is why NACA will be delivering a new funding to support large scale-up Indigenous tourism project. It will
She doesn't even know what the hell she's talking about.
to scale up their projects and grow their own economy. While Conservatives have always looked down on Indigenous communities, we will continue to support Indigenous tourism growth through Indigenous-led process.
The Honourable Member for Skeena, Bulkley Valley.
Mr. Speaker, air passengers who've been grossly mistreated by the big airlines are having to wait years to have their complaints heard. The backlog of complaints, right now it's over 70,000. And we just learned of a couple from British Columbia who finally got compensation only to have Air Canada turn around and sue them. The Liberals promised the strongest air passenger protections in the world, but the reality is the new rules make it easier for the airlines to sue their customers. Strongest in the world, Mr. Speaker? What world is this minister on?
Honourable Minister of Transport.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians work very hard to save some money, to travel, to go see their loved ones, to take some well-deserved vacations. That's why they deserve a good service from the airline companies. The Conservatives didn't do anything at all until we came here and we put rules in place, and the airlines have to do better, Mr. Speaker, way much better.
The Honourable Member for Saanich Gulf Islands.
Mr. Speaker, it's World Environment Day, and I'm so honored that in Ottawa, visiting this next few days, are British Columbians who work night and day to protect our southern resident killer whale population, and yet this government makes decision after decision after decision that further threatens the survival. There are only 75 whales left in the Salish seas of this population. The approval of the Trans Mountain Pipeline, even building the Trans Mountain Pipeline, increasing the risk of spills with the certainty of increased noise, doubling the Roberts Bank port in Vancouver with over the objections of scientists who told this government it would threaten the survival of the southern resident killer whales. Does the government understand the goal is to protect, not exterminate?
There you go. You know what? She's growing on me. She's growing on me.
Environment and climate change.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I would like to reiterate a happy World Environment Day to the member from Saanich Gulf Islands, to all Greens, to Liberals, to NDPs, to Bloc Québécois, Mr. Speaker. Unfortunately, the Conservatives continue to deny the existence of climate change altogether, but just last week, the government announced important measures to help this country continue to lead the way in the fight against climate change. We published draft methane regulations to support cleaner energy. We introduced the world's first ever cap on oil and gas emissions, Mr. Speaker. We finalized our new EV availability standard to increase the supply of ZEVs across the country, and we committed to working with all stakeholders to deliver on a clean, green economy of the future.
Let me do a couple of introductions. We do have a...
Nah, we're done. We are done. We're not seeing who's up in the gallery. Folks, that was entertaining as hell. You're going to want to stay tuned to this channel here for some clips, but I'm also going to be releasing a video of Mr. Sunshine in the next 30-ish minutes, so go check it out there. That's where we're going to end the stream. I want to know what you guys think down below in the live chat before I do end it. On your way out, I just want to encourage you guys one last time to smash the like button and subscribe if you haven't yet already. Helps grow the channel. You're watching the streams. You're watching the videos anyways. It helps fight climate change for all I care. It's tax deductible for all I care. It's free to do, most importantly. So with that being said, that's where we're going to end this right now, and we will see you guys same time tomorrow. I do want to thank the super chats that did come through. Thank you very much. Thank you everybody who did participate in the live chat, be part of the community, who did like the video. I'd like to thank my mom. I'd like to thank Jesus. I'd like to thank God. And